From Fox 8 Sports, this is the Overtime Podcast.
From the Fox 8 studios in New Orleans, this is the Fox 8 Overtime Podcast. I am your host, Sean Fazende, riding shotgun as he does each and every podcast. Is Andre Johnson
Jr.
Do not forget the JR at the end of that name. That's very important to add the junior at the end of his name. Before we get into today's content, be sure to like, share, rate, and review. If you're watching us on YouTube, hit that subscribe button to get the bell notification from when we drop that fire content. And today is Wednesday in the city of New Orleans, a big day as the Saints move on into week number 3 against the Philadelphia Eagles, who are coming off of a short week. So a lot of dynamics, a lot of storylines as we get into another week of action here in the NFL. But first things first, my friend, how are you?
I'm feeling good. You know, we're in the midst of the NFL season. We talked in all the weeks leading up to this time about how excited we were to get here, and we're finally here. And, man, things are busy for us, but it's a lot more fun when the team you're covering is playing the way
it's a good busy. It really is. It's a good busy. I was just talking before we got on the air how just Wednesdays, just everything just files in like on a very short period of time. You got to be very efficient with your time, but nonetheless, we like it because that's what we do, and that's what we're built for here at Fox 8, and you know that's just how we are. And it's Saints football season, so it can't be bad. Today, big picture, you know, we're watching the Saints offense unfold before our very eyes. Things are happening. Great things are happening. Yeah. Everyone's in a good mood. And one person who has, if he's not one, he's 1A, has benefited from this new scheme change, has been number 41, Alvin Kamara. So with Alvin, it's more than just Alvin the player, or it's more than just him, what he's doing on the football field. It's also some bottom line business stuff we have to talk about. So that's where I wanted to go with the big picture on this Wednesday today.
Right. Alvin Kamara, so far this season through 2 games, 35 carries, 198 yards, 5.7 yards a carry, 4 touchdowns on the ground. In the receiving game, 7 catches on 8 targets, 92 yards, 1 touchdown, 13.1 yards per reception. And that screen pass that he took to the house on Sunday, that was the longest reception of his career. So through the first 2 games, we can see Alvin Kamara has been running wild. But, Sean, is he running his way into a new contract with the New Orleans Saints?
We had to go here because, I mean, with every game and with the comfort level and with just the success that they keep on having, obviously this was such a story leading into training camp, and he kind of diffused it by showing up and doing everything he had to do. But he's here, and he's performing lights out. So the question is, has he played his way, or is he running his way into a new contract? I say yes, and yes. I mean, how couldn't you? Couldn't you right now? I mean, Alvin Kamara has benefited from this offense, yes, but he's also the guy that's kind of unlocked this offense to where certain things you can call that are fairly simple, he can turn into certain gains in different types of production just because of the style of runner that he is. His style is perfect for the Clint Kubiak outside zone, wide zone system because Alvin is a naturally patient runner. He's a very smooth runner, but as we said many times, it never looks like Alvin is doing too much. It never looks like Alvin is going too fast. It always looks like he's going just the right speed when it comes to this offense. And this offense, he's got more space to work with, and he's a naturally patient player, so he can feel the cutback lanes. And he knows how to get skinny in the hole. He knows how to turn the corner. He knows how to do all those things. So he's the perfect fit for this offense, for the Clint Kubiak scheme. Remember, we talked about this multiple times. The player he's been most compared to his entire career has been Christian McCaffrey. Yep. And we thought immediately when Kubiak came aboard, he would be the biggest beneficiary of Kubiak's scheme. Christian McCaffrey scored 21 touchdowns a season ago, 14 on the ground, 7 through the air. Through 2 games, Alvin Kamara now has 5 touchdowns. The comparisons were right. It wasn't rocket science. The comparisons were accurate. AK and C-Mac are very close to the same type of player when it comes to the NFL. So, yes, he's earned it. At 29 years of age, he is not washed up. It was more of the Because I was one of the ones that said, is he still a top 10 back? I mean, can he still break one? Can he still make some people miss? Because I had some doubts about that when I watched film last year, even when he had space. But the answer is, at least in my opinion, through 2 games, is yes. So I'm very curious. He said he's not talking about it. That probably means just publicly. They're still going to be negotiating, Saints and his people. We know that. I mean, they don't just stop talking because these things,
Right.
It's just they evolve. Is there a holdup right now? Or have the negotiations moved in a positive direction now? And if there is a kind of a holdup, is it on Kamara's side or is it on the Saints side? Because I kind of felt like early on it was probably more on the Saints side, even though it was a report that the Saints had made an offer to him. That's fine, you can make an offer, but if it's not the offer he feels like is fair market value, then he doesn't have to necessarily take it. Now I kind of feel like maybe it's a little more on Alvin's side, just kind of talking and, if that is indeed where they are. I mean, like I said, I find it hard to believe that they're just not going to broach the subject at all. Alvin may not. He doesn't have to because that's not what he's there to do. But his agent, his people certainly can. And certainly I know the Saints would like to strike a deal. I think the leverage has not completely shifted, like all in one direction, but has slightly shifted a little bit in Alvin Kamara's direction because he's proven he can still do it. And at 29 years old, he doesn't look old. He doesn't look old. So does he want to, or should he kind of risk it and, let the season play out and see how his market value is going to be at the end of the year? Or does he kind of do they go to the drawing board and say, no, let's get this thing locked up right now while spirits are high because anything could happen tomorrow or the next day or week 7 or week 10 or week 9 or week 15, whatever the case may be, and thus hurting his, market value. Right now, I think you're in the driver's seat to maybe, get some guaranteed money in 2025. I'm fine with the Saints. Let's talk numbers for a second. I'm fine with the New Orleans Saints. Looking at Alvin Kamara right now, he's making like around $12 million if you add the base salary plus bonuses that he's gotten. I'm fine with them right now saying we will guarantee what you're making right now, which is what, 12.5, just call it that.
Yeah.
12.5 next year. I think that's top 4 money right now. I think that's right in line with Saquon Barkley money. Ironically, a player he'll be going up against on Sunday. I'm fine with that. If that's the direction they want to go. What does Alvin want in that regard? Does he want C-Mac money? I don't know. I don't think it ever really felt like that's what he was going for. But if you're the Saints right now, to me, that would be a fair compromise that would make everyone happy. He gets his guarantee for next year, so he's not playing with the injury risk. And obviously, the Saints get a very good player at a rate. They're already paying him right now. Obviously, you know about the salary cap, but they would have to find other ways to figure it out from the salary cap standpoint. Here's the other thing, though. Alvin has to see, and he does. He does. Alvin has to see just how perfect of a fit this place or this offense is for him. Now, things could certainly change if Kubiak becomes a hot name and he's a head coaching candidate and he's gone after 1 year, which could certainly happen because he's got a last name that people remember and obviously he's having success. But if somehow they run it back with year 2 with Kubiak, I think in Alvin's brain, he's got to think, you know what? We're pretty darn good, and I'm pretty good in this system, so this might just be the perfect place for me. So I hope this comes to a happy place at some point, hopefully during the season, because I always felt like that was the path for Alvin. Show you still have it during the season, and at some point get that guaranteed money during the season. I always felt like that was the best path for him to get what he wanted.
Right, and you touched on it, and as the kids say, they call it washed. And the question was, coming into this season, is Alvin Kamara washed? You can definitively say right now, no, he is not washed. It's very clear that the vision is still there. The explosiveness is still there. The versatility is still there. Now, one thing you mentioned with the contract, getting it done through in the season, I think it would behoove the Saints at this point to get it done as soon as possible. Because something else the kids say, yesterday's price isn't today's price. The price that you could have gotten him for in, say, August, maybe July, when he was coming off 2 down years, may not be the price that you can get him for if he continues on this path and rushes for 1,200 and catches for 650. It scores 15 touchdowns this year. The price, what he's going to ask for then is going to be a lot higher than what he was probably asking for back in July and August. So if you're the Saints, you might want to really get moving and get this deal done as soon as possible. And another reason for that is something else that we can see, I'm sure the Saints can see. You don't really have another option at that position on this team. Like Jamal Williams, my anime guy, I like him as a complimentary piece. Do you want him to be your number one running back? Kendre Miller, so far, he has not shown you that you can rely on him, not just on the field, but just to be present, to be at practice, to be available. And that's really your only two other options other than Jordan Mims right now. And, I mean, maybe you draft one come April. They've got some guys out in the draft, Ollie Gordon, Quinshawn Judkins, Ashton Jeanty. There's guys who are going to come in April, but are you going to draft one of those guys and give them the level of volume you're giving AK? No, you're not. So AK, we said in the summer, a lot of people said he didn't really have a lot of leverage. I think that leverage is rising with every week.
No doubt. What number would you give him right now?
I'm with you. I would give him what he's got now.
So I think somewhere between 12 and 13 to me is fine.
That's elite running back money.
That's elite running back.
Derrick Henry got, what was it, $9 million a year?
Somewhere 8 or 9 or something like that. And he's 2 years 16, so it's 8.
Yeah, 8.
Is that right? And he's 30 right now. Is that correct?
Yep. Alvin Kamara is 29. I believe he'll turn 30 in the next few
we've said it on several podcasts, and the Saints, I think, needed confirmation he was still that guy. Can still be that guy that they drafted back in 2017 that took this place over and became, the Saints version of Marshall Faulk from the greatest show on turf. I mean, that we remember the 17, 18, 19, 20 seasons. We know that. And I don't know how much more they need to see now to believe that he's still got it. And they know. I mean, Dennis Allen's talking so much. He's praising him every chance he gets. They know. The question is, okay, where do you go if you're the Saints, and how far are you willing to go in terms of your guarantee? And if you're, because the Saints, you can tell you right now, you're going to want him back next year. You know that. You know that. But if you're Alvin, how much do you want to kind of live life on the edge a little bit of playing week in and week out, getting a lot of carries, a lot of production, taking a lot of hits, to where if the unthinkable happens, and knock on wood, you heard that, folks? We knocked hard on that wood right there.
That's real wood.
Then your market value that is creeping way back up right now totally disappears. So I think it's in both parties' interest. Let's talk about this right now. Let's hash this out right now. Let's come at a value that's pretty fair. And if you're the Saints and you're Kai, Harley, and Mickey Loomis, there's certain ways you can do it, I guess, to maybe make the numbers work. I'm usually salary cap and this type of stuff. It's off season mode. It's very rare that I get to this much in season mode. But I just think there's a chance here for a good resolution that's going to make everyone happy, that I think is reasonable on both sides. And I think what Alvin has successfully done through 2 weeks is eliminate the uncertainty of if he can play. And to me, it eliminates. I look at Alvin right now and think, yeah, that guy's got at least one more year left, at least another year left, if not more.
Yeah.
So I think he successfully answered that question, and I think the Saints need to see that. And I think guaranteeing some form of a salary or bonus or whatever it is in 2025 is the next step in hopefully this business relationship continuing.
Right, and when you look at the running backs that you would consider his peers, the guys who were drafted with and around him, obviously Christian McCaffrey's way up here. But when you look at everybody else, Derrick Henry's around $8 million. Joe Mixon's getting 3 years around $8 million, maybe a little under $8 million. Aaron Jones, who just went to Minnesota, he's getting less than that. So if you do bring AK back around that $12 million mark, he, outside of Christian McCaffrey, who's kind of the ultimate outlier, he's going to be making a lot more money than the guys who are around his age and still contributing in this league.
And signing that at 30, which would essentially be 30, that you're getting what NFL running backs in the primes of their careers are getting, well under 30. To get that at 30, I think would maybe be setting a new precedent, not just for himself, but for other running backs that hit a certain age that show they could certainly do it. And I think for the Saints, it would be a good gesture to say, no, we acknowledge greatness when we see it, and we're going to pay accordingly. Because the Saints are not necessarily, I would never label them cheap.
Yeah.
But I would say they pay market value. Like Not really more, not really less. They pay right at market value. That's always been the reputation of Mickey Loomis. It's always been the reputation of Kai Harley, the way he structures things. So I think ultimately there is a good way to go about this, and hopefully, look, the vibes are good right now. Sometimes you got to cash in on the feel-good feeling, because it's just we know around not this time last year because they were 2-0 at this point last year, but things can take a rocky turn pretty fast. So hopefully that's not the case for the Saints, and hopefully they get this resolved pretty quickly. What else we got today?
What else we have today is the injury report, because while we're talking about Alvin Kamara, someone who has made his job a bit easier is tight end, fullback, quarterback, running back, football player, whatever you want to call him, Taysom Hill. And as we look at today's injury report, the two guys who were full participants at practice, linebacker Jalen Ford, wide receiver Rashid Shaheed. Limited at practice, cornerback Marshawn Lattimore, offensive lineman Taliese Fuaga, DB Tyrann Mathieu, wide receiver Cedric Wilson. The four guys who did not practice, DeMarco Jackson, Colin Saunders, Landon Young, and the biggest red flag of them all is Taysom Hill. We saw he had a bit of an injury situation on Sunday. Today on Wednesday, he did not practice. Taysom Hill has been very active as a lead blocker in the running game, really making a lot of those runs by AK and Jamal work. How big of a deal is it that Taysom, this early in the season, is banged up?
Well, it's a big deal. And here's the thing. The impression I've got, if he does miss, it would be this game. But there's still a very good chance he won't miss this game. They're hoping to get him back on the field, do some limited work tomorrow. But I don't think this would be a long, extended absence if that were indeed the case. Let me make sure I'll reiterate that because that might have been a little confusing. I don't know if Taysom's going to play or not, and I don't know which way they're leaning. But if for some reason he were to miss, it doesn't feel like it would be an extended absence. By the way, Marshawn Lattimore did practice today, so that's certainly a good thing as well. But this is huge. This is huge because all you have to do is really just go back and watch the first 15 to 20 plays, the script as they call it, when they go out, Kubiak and Carr and Janoko and all those guys, they come up with this script to kind of give them a feel for the way the defense is playing them. They have Taysom in all different areas. Do not get lost in stats with Taysom right now because I know you guys maybe think his stats might be down, but let me just tell you, his presence matters because of what he does when he's on the field, not by the quote-unquote production, but when he's on the field, the information a defense has to give up by the way they play their personnel groupings with him on the field. You see him at fullback. You see him line up attached to the line at tight end, kind of off the line as a tight end. You got him at tailback. And if a team is now, like for instance, against the Cowboys, they were playing him as a fullback, which means the extra linebacker was on the field. They played him in their base coverage. That gives you a lot of information. Now you can base a lot of things of what you're going to call beyond that script with that information, knowing they were going to play base against Taysom Hill, which, in my opinion, is exactly what they want. They want that extra linebacker on the field when Taysom. They feel like that gives them a much more favorable look with Taysom. Now, look, teams will adjust to that. You'll probably see an extra safety on the field, or maybe they go with nickel when Taysom Hill is on the football field. So not having that is a chess piece, a major chess piece that Clint Kubiak does not have, and he would obviously have to adjust to it. We don't know if he's going to play. We don't know if he's going to be limited in his action, if he's going to be 100%. But I do think this is a very important injury to monitor because, last week it was Fuaga and Lattimore. Fuaga gave it a go. Lattimore, I think everyone pretty much knew he wasn't going to play, but it looks like he'll be back. But Taysom is a different kind of player, and he's the only player that you would utilize that way of thinking in regards to his playing stats is what he's on the field. What does the defense? How does the defense respond to him? Because he's such a unique player and he plays so many unique roles. Is okay. Are they declaring him a tight end? Are they declaring him a fullback? Are they declaring him a tailback? Are they declaring him a slot receiver? I mean, think about that. I mean, that can give a defensive coordinator fits. And based off that information, now Clint Kubiak can click. Okay, I'm going. Okay, they got him as they're treating him as a fullback. Okay, I'm going this way. There's just so many things you can do when you utilize that information that only Taysom Hill can provide. Yep. Only him can. Who do you replace Taysom Hill with? I mean, you can't.
There's not a player in this league
you can't
replace Taysom Hill.
There's just no one else you can replace with Taysom Hill. So That's a big injury to monitor. Hopefully it's not a big deal. I saw just randomly he was giving a speech at St. Charles Catholic High School, the football team, I believe, last night. So clearly he's healthy enough to kind of be out and about. I know he had to go to the hospital. That's something to monitor. But if they feel confident he can maybe do some limited work tomorrow. Tomorrow's the big day, because if he can't do anything tomorrow, you're probably talking about Friday. Then you're really... By Friday, are you really comfortable with him executing the game plan, which he's going to be heavily involved in if he only has one day of practice? I think that might be a little bit of a stretch. So tomorrow, Thursday, is a huge day for Taysom Hill's status.
Definitely, especially now that he's working in that fullback role as a blocker. He's taking more hits than maybe he was when he was coming in at quarterback and taking a few carries. Now, Adam Prentice has done a good job this season as a blocker in the time that he's gotten in, but Adam Prentice obviously doesn't have the same versatility and, most of all, unpredictability that Taysom Hill brings. When you see Taysom Hill run out on that field as a defensive coordinator, you don't really know what he's going to do. He could be blocking. He could get a carry. It could be a direct snap. He might pass the ball. He might go on a 20-yard corner route. You never know with Taysom Hill. So that's definitely one of the Saints' most relevant weapons, and if he's not there, it's definitely something you're going to have to adjust to.
Yeah, and it's funny, we were talking about this in the press room today, just out there at practice, and we're there all the time, so we're just kind of chit-chatting with observations. Peyton gets the credit for discovering the versatility of Taysom and finding ways to kind of utilize him, kind of sprinkle him into the offense. But I think even he didn't quite tap into the full range of creativity that you can do with him that Kubiak seems to have done in 2 games.
Yeah.
In 2 games. Now, he took a lot of what Peyton started because, there was no blueprint when Peyton started with Taysom. But in 2 games, you see him as the lead blocker. You see him doing on the fullback blast. You see him running they never used him as a tailback, ever. And when he ran about the quarterback, 99% of the time it was QB power and with a bunch of tight ends on the field. Now, last year they incorporated the QB draw probably a little bit more, which is probably a good thing just to kind of loosen that up a little bit. But now you see him running a QB sweep like he did on 3rd down. They run a lot of they run the ball on 3rd down more than they ever have. 3rd medium, catching passes, lead blocker has probably been as good as anybody as a fullback. So this guy makes a difference. Everyone understands that. And, the term football player is the most accurate one when it comes to Taysom Hill because, the Cowboys may play him in base with a strong side linebacker. The Eagles may declare him a wide receiver and play him with nickel. Who they have? The Chiefs may declare him as a tight end and playing with a big safety or a 3rd safety. Think about if you're a coordinator, defensive coordinator, how much you have to prepare for that. And then based off everything, execute what you're going to do. Maybe that doesn't necessarily help you in terms of matchups, but you have to be so aware of where Taysom is on the field at all times. So I think this is a huge thing to watch going forward. Hopefully he can get back on the field. But like I said before, Thursday is the day. If he can't practice by Thursday, I think it would be somewhat doubtful he would play on Sunday.
Yeah, the Eagles would definitely get a break potentially if Taysom doesn't play. But on the other side, the Saints are also getting a bit of a break because the Eagles' best receiver, A.J. Brown, he did not practice today. And I believe he or his camp said that he could potentially miss a few weeks. Now, he hasn't officially been ruled out for the Saints game. I guess there's a chance that he's able to pull it together and get out there. But he didn't practice today, and the news isn't looking very good that he would be out there on Sunday.
Yeah, and honestly, the way he was intertwined with Jalen, the way, DA kind of alluded to it today, the way they're so well-versed in hitting that second route, that second play, whenever Jalen breaks contain, that makes it so difficult to stop. And it's not just the fact that he breaks contain, it's that the receivers are so well trained to hit a second route, which is very difficult. So not having him obviously would help. But I'm so curious about this dynamic because, honestly, DA knew his Achilles heel as a D coordinator was it's certain things you can't do against these quarterbacks that can run. And when I say run, Jalen can do just enough in the pockets where you have to respect his passing. And then when he runs, he's got probably the best instinct. He's not as fast or elusive as Lamar Jackson. He's not as powerful as Josh Allen. but he has the best feel for when to scramble of any quarterback in the NFL. That's why when he runs, there's so much space. You know, the young guys like Richardson and Jaden Daniels, they really haven't mastered the dual threat art. It's a lot of running right now. But this guy like Hurts can hurt you, no pun intended. So I am so thoroughly intrigued by this matchup because now you're playing him with an offense that's rolling with the Saints. So how many times do you realistically have to stop him, and then you're put in a stressful position? And that's why it's so important to play the complementary football game. Because honestly, if your offense is rolling so much to where you ain't got to stop him 8 times, you only got to stop him 7. Well, that's a huge advantage because if you got sometimes that 8th time or that 9th time could be the one that kills you. And honestly, I think the Saints offense puts them in a decent spot there.
Alante Taylor alluded to that. I believe it was Monday. Madeline Adams talked to him in the locker room, and he essentially said it takes so much pressure and so much off the shoulders of the defense when the offense is playing that way, because it feels like the defense now has more freedom, and the defense could have a lot of freedom on Sunday. No A.J. Brown, Jalen Hurts, well, potentially no A.J. Brown. Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown have been one of the more dynamic big play duos in the entire NFL. We'll see what Devontae Smith, the Louisiana guy coming home, can do in that game. Saquon Barkley had a big drop that kind of cost them the game on Monday, but he had a really good game one against Green Bay. Saints typically, historically, have been pretty good at stopping the run, so there's going to be a lot of talented players, a lot of playmakers on the field on Sunday. I'm excited for a good game.
Yeah, me too. And look, I think the Saints are going to be able to run against Philadelphia. I really do, which I think is key. I thought they could run against Dallas. I think they're going to be able to run against Philly as well. And if they can do that, everything else kind of falls into place. If they can really run the football at ease or at will, everything else kind of falls into place with this team. That was fun, wasn't it? That was fun.
Of course.
Good Wednesday
podcast.
That's it. We'll be back on Friday for Andre Johnson Jr. I am Sean Fazende. We'll catch you guys next time on Overtime.